You know what time it is. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Today is December 9th, 2023. My name is James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here. Look, come on in, sit on down, have a seat, and sit your booties on the magic carpet. We're about to take a ride today. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead, subscribe there. I'm also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays typically, as well as on Tuesdays at 2 on this very channel. Absolutely, yes, you can find me here. Forehead kisses and all. So if you guys would like to, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. We're going to be talking about Substack a little bit more today, especially, so please make sure you have a Substack account. Also, this is for you so that you're aware of whenever I upload clips, go live, or even write articles. Yes, I also write articles on there as well, so thank you so very much. Please like, share, and subscribe for some deliciousness. Yes, that's what I'm here for, because you like what I give you. I know you do. Anyway, so just so good to see all of you here on the stream. Good to see everybody that is watching right now. As per usual, whenever I have a guest, I make sure I be respectful of their time, because that's just the kind of guy I am. And so with that, I say a blanketed hello to everybody that's watching in the chat, everybody's watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rockfin, and Rumble. Mwah! Good to see all of you here. I want to also just get to a point where I have all of you here, and just want to hug you all, right? Because that's what y'all make me do. Anywho, while we're at it, we're going to get to our guest for today. He is a author, writes articles on Substack. He is also a graduate and an amazing person, somebody who is extremely brilliant, is involved in community action in the Orlando chapter of RBN, and really just a chill dude to talk to. I have KD Lewis joining me today. So good to have you finally on the channel, KD. My brother, good to see you.
Brother, it's good to see you too.
So one of the things that I wanted to get into and ask you in regards to the work that you're doing is, how in the hell did you get into this? Because the thing is that when we met, it had to be, what was it, in September we met?
I think it was whenever that first meet and greet was.
No, it was in August. We had met in August. And when we met, I had no idea you were coming. I had no idea that you would be there. And then it was me and one of the first members that were there. Shout out to you, Sabiha. And you came in and you were like, is this the meeting? And we were like, yeah. So I wasn't expecting you. So how was that first meeting felt like?
The first meeting I'm very glad that I was able to go. Like I told you before, I was a little nervous when that opportunity came up, but I knew I wanted to be involved in the sense that you and RBN were doing work. And so I came in, and when I saw you and Sabiha, and we sat and we talked for 5, 6 hours. I don't even remember how long we were talking, but it felt like I finally found a genuine community that I felt like I was lacking, with me living kind of on my own, and sort of my own political thoughts are a little bit more, I wouldn't say obscure, but just farther down the line than many other people that I interact with. So finding the community with you guys was a true blessing.
So, and thank you very much for those kind words. So what prompted you to get into activism? Because a lot of people who may be watching this channel, some people who are new to watching this channel, they may be feeling like, well, what is the first thing you do when you want to dive into this? What drove you? What was the main driving force to push you into doing this type of work?
So with without trying to sound super long-winded, I want to go like answer the question that I remember seeing on Twitter a lot, which is what was the thing that initially radicalized you?
Sure.
And for me, that was when I was 15, and it was the murder of Trayvon Martin, and that was that was the first time. You know, I was 15. He was killed at 17. It was the first time I really saw, or you know, got past the blinders or the veneer of a somewhat post-racial United States, when I saw my own classmates, my own teammates that I was involved in sports, like really fall for the mud that was thrown on that kid's name. And when the verdict of his murderer was found not guilty, they were they were like, oh, I mean, yeah, sure, you shouldn't be a thug. And I that point is what sort of triggered me into having a more political view on just anything.
Yeah.
And from there, it just sort of expanded. Going into college, I was very heavy with not being anti-cop at the time, but I was very much, I wasn't pro-police, especially in 2016. That was the death of Philando Castile. And that is what triggered me to start actually writing stuff to combat different narratives just on Facebook, when you know, Facebook wasn't full of ads all the time. I wrote a couple of, you could call them op-eds, but they were just Facebook posts. I was 19, writing about the Black Panthers, writing about the FBI crime statistics and how those are manipulated in talking points to justify our murder by the state. And then from there, following the elections, I mean, 2016 was my first election to vote in. And that's when I was introduced to social democracy, the sort of top of the iceberg of socialism that intrigued me, and I just followed along. That's where my enjoyment of politics came from. And it's a little embarrassing to say, but my true introduction into the left was through Secular Talk. Good old Ken and Barbie. As that time went on, and I would see electoral politics just seem to fumble to secure any sort of real gains for, you know, people like me, it wasn't until this very recent last presidential election that I was almost just done. I was done with all politics. I had given up any sort of hope of change. But that's when I sort of expanded my view more, and lo and behold, I came across you guys, and you guys sparked a new sense of political avenue that I could go around. And so I followed the minds that you guys have mentioned. I was already a big fan of the Black Panthers, but I started to learn more about like Kwame Ture, more about where Malcolm X and Martin Luther King were headed before they were assassinated. And then I think when I finally got in touch with community between you guys at the Orlando RBN chapter, it sort of just solidified me on this path of activism. And now with writing, I could take that to another level that I never even imagined I could be able to do when I lost hope back in 2020. So I mean,
Yeah.
I had a time where I gave up, but I found a light somewhere. That light was RBN, and now I'm here.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so very much for recounting that. Just as far as you mentioned writing, you know, you spoke about before how you actually really like writing, back in your days in college, and in high school. So you talked about how you really enjoyed that. Can you give us a glimpse of what sparked you back into doing the writing again? What reignited that passion and propelled you to purpose?
Hmm. I think when I was writing what became my first article, the title "Black Political Power," and analyzing the our Black misleadership. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as I was just writing, I was really just ranting a little bit. But then as I was writing, and I was I was just in a zone, and it just sparked that that excitement, that that passion. It just came from me wanting to rant at first. And speaking wise, I wouldn't say I'm the best orator in regards to being confrontational or handling confrontation, but
Mm-hmm.
with writing, and I could put out all my thoughts, put them together, edit them, and make them clear and concise. Um, that's that's why I chose writing as a route. And then just as I'm typing out this op-ed, I'm like, this, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like I can see myself doing this more.
So you mentioned your writing, and so you introduced me to some of your writing, and I would like to go to your Substack here. One
Mm-hmm.
of the first article that you wrote was about Black political power, the value. I'm sorry, the evolution of Black political leadership, and then so you go into the basically the genesis of the Black liberation movement starting in the 50s, which you put here, and you talk about what we call the Black Boule. And so I'll just read this first sentence. It says, the fight for civil rights has existed since the fall of the Reconstruction era. However, the actual movement commemorated every February contained prominent leaders who were members of the Black Boule, such as the most invoked leader of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If you can give some of the audience the definition of Black Boule, or your definition of what Black Boule is, because there are maybe some people who are not as educated on that term.
Yeah. So the simplest way to put it is that the Black Boule is basically a Black elite circle. It could be the members of the Freemasons. And I mentioned later there's something I refer to as the offspring of the Black Boule, and that is referred to some of the National Panhellenic Council, or the Divine Nine, that some people may know about. But basically, it's a circle of Black elitism around the same area of they're not quite the Black bourgeois, because the bourgeois represents sort of a different class in station. And of course, with Martin Luther King, he wasn't a billionaire, but he was of those high societies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So could this also be indicative of people who are, for instance, within the Congressional Black Caucus, people like that? You have people. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name. Jim Clyburn, people like that. Could that also be part of the Black Boule, so to speak, or the modern day version of that?
Yeah, well, Jim Clyburn is actually a member of the same frat that I'm a part of. He's
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, he's part of that type of inner circle.
Okay. All right. And so one of the things that you actually talked about And I love when you brought this up. It says you talked about the political actions that were done by people who are in these different organizations. Now, just as an aside, Kwame Ture actually spoke of the need for all of us to be part of different organizations so that we can organize around doing actions to improve our community, which is what people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Asada Shakur, Angela Davis, and many others have been a part of. And in here, you says these actions include sit-ins, marches, and boycotts that disrupted the flow of society and exposed the Black morality within our leaders and a large number of hate-filled subjects of an adolescent empire to the rest of the country. These offensive endeavors would lead to legislative wins mentioned earlier. Coupled with these actions were more defensive activities, most notable being the 35-plus survival programs of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. These programs protected many Black people in the country from police, lack of healthcare, lack of education, lack of food. One major accomplishment was forcing Congress to enact a permanent nationwide free breakfast program in 1975. So you bring about the historical context regarding what true Black leadership can bring about. Mm-hmm. And so how does this translate to the actions that you try to do on the ground at present? Because you are, for all intents and purposes, a member of Gen Z, right? Yep. So how does this translate to the actions that you try to do on the ground?
So what I usually, how I was able to sort of translate that is taking the understanding that we have to be able to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time as we do all these other things out here that, these startup Black businesses, getting these Black people in high places. I feel like there was a large abandonment of on the ground movements, especially like the Black Panthers. After the 1980s, those were organizations of that caliber were non-existent. So for someone of my generation, I see a lot from the college perspective. A lot of us are in the other half of that realm that are doing sort of the Black excellence, but without the ground movements and actually challenging the power that the Black excellence would actually be surrounded behind. So what I took from that understanding of history is that you need all fronts covered. And so what I try to do on the ground is the mutual aid and educating of what that is and where that comes from. Essentially my goal is to make socialism not scary to the aspiring upper echelon of Black people. Mm-hmm. If that answers the question, but yeah.
Yeah. What is Black excellence in your view?
Black excellence has always been to me high achievement, things that we get praised for. The first Black I'm trying to think of like just anything of sort of a high attainment that was once sort of not available for a lot of us to have, such as owning a lot of businesses. I think when people think of Black excellence, they'll point to somewhere like Atlanta with a lot of Black businesses, a lot of Black wealth. So that's where I think Black excellence has been sort of catered around. It's something, it's something that's good to be praised, especially with the with how our image is perversed in our society now. So it's good to see these things that are basically the opposite of what the media presents us to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it just stopped at the representation of doing something very well or not, or breaking a sort of a statistic or stereotype for our race.
Yeah. I it's not missed upon me that, and maybe I'll get in trouble for this, but it feels like to me in the Black community that Black excellence is usually just a phrase used to praise Black capitalism. When I think of Black excellence, I think of the people who have been trying to dismantle a system where a lot of Black people feel like they have to succeed in order to be accepted.
Mm.
For instance, people like Kwame Ture, to me, is Black excellence, right? People like Fred Hampton, or people, Black excellence could be Nat Turner. And the thing is like, why would he be considered Black excellence? Well, because he fought against oppression. Never mind the fact that, a lot of people back then considered him to be what people would call today a terrorist.
Yep.
Because he literally fought against oppression. And so when it comes to Black excellence, are we doing it within the confines of, no offense to anybody watching, but to be like the successful white people who are constantly, using their power to put people under their thumb, as far as, or extract their wealth. You know what I mean? The wealth that they create. So are we trying to be more like them, or are we trying to be more like somebody who pushes for change so that everyone has the material needs that every human being should have?
So I genuinely believe that the latter is what I think more people, aspire to do when we take these the Black excellence route. Is not, I don't think a majority of people who want to be the Black business owner, the black owner of just anything they could say, yeah, this is Black owned. I don't think there's a motivation of sort of copying the white supremacist system.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going this route it works in antithesis to the social justice that I believe a lot of Black people want to see. Yeah. And so I don't think many Black capitalists are capitalists out of malice, but it's sort of, they want to believe that we can be those mogul empires and have that and praise that, but we can also protect our most vulnerable. Those things can't work together.
Yeah. It's just, it feels like kind of a catch-22 in that way, right? Like, I want to be able to have a business, but at the same time, and I want to fight against the social injustice, but at the same time, I have to play ball within a system because this feels like the only game in town. That's what it kind of feels like, So thank you very much for that. I want to get back to another portion that you have wrote, another article. And this one was, it felt like a labor of love. And this one it's entitled, "Thank You for Your Service Update." It says how the military industrial complex exploits the goodwill and image of U.S. service members at the expense of American citizens and global security. I'm going to be honest with you. This is actually one of my favorite articles that you actually wrote.
It's definitely one of my top ones.
Yeah, definitely. So what inspired you to write this?
So after Veterans Day, I see a lot. I come from a family of veterans. My father, I said in the article, my father served 27 years in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So all I knew growing up were mainly Black military people. And
Gotcha.
of course, after leaving college, there's a lot of friends that are in the military. And I always, and you know, I'm not in the military, but I do work with the military with my job. So it really was a very personal article in that sense. Everyone is saying, "Oh, you know, happy Veterans Day. We thank our veterans for the work they do." And I was just thinking of the story that Sabiha told us about one of the patients of Vietnam, the VA, and how he basically said, "Please do not thank me for my service because of what he did over there."
Yeah.
And I don't know what the people that in my life, what everything they do. I don't know what their involvement was in, but either way, when I saw just a lot of gratitude for the veterans with my knowledge of how we work on a foreign policy level and how everything that is projected onto the military as something that just automatically deserves reverence, it's not reality. So that article was personal because I don't want to shame anybody for serving. Like everyone has their reasons for joining. Everyone has their reasons for staying. Everyone does different things that may have a direct impact on a lot of death, and some that is so obscure they don't even touch that stuff. But I think the reverence behind the military service, I think it comes from what people gain personally from the military service. Like the life that me and my family was able to have due to my father's service was something that was very much above average compared to many other Black Americans. Yeah. And so I get the gratitude for the life that you can get from the military, but it's sort of like at what cost. And then I wanted to bring home in the article that the positive things we gain from military service, which isn't just a sort of more just economically taken care of. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's definitely better than the average American. I think I put in there that even non-military members like myself, if I were to have a kid, then I am entitled to 12 weeks of paternity leave.
Yeah.
That's something that many Americans don't get. And so I wanted people to get that the positive things we gain from military service should not be given to us at the expense of the type of service the military is basically globally known for doing at this point.
Yeah. In fact, you actually touched on it here. It says, for many Black families with households tied to military service, my family included, military service is both a pipeline for long-term financial stability and a stepping stone to reach the upper echelon of society. The Institute of Family Studies asserts that Black men who have served in the military have almost a 10% greater chance of reaching the middle class or higher compared to those who do not serve. This result of increased access of upward mobility makes sense. Service members are afforded opportunities and benefits that essentially remove socioeconomic barriers the average Black American is susceptible to encounter. The ability to go to college for free or receive forgiveness of student loans accrued prior to military service are just a couple of examples of benefits gained via service. And it says these benefits are not limited to the military members, but also include their dependents, spouses, and children. And the only thing one must exchange for this life is their body and national loyalty. So, a lot of people say, well, should we be afforded that simply by going into the military? Or because some of these things I personally see as a right and not something that should just be done through military service. What say you?
Well, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Even like when college was free at a point, and now in order for many people, if you don't have the money to go and you're not blessed enough to get a scholarship, you have to take out a loan, and paying that back has been a major pain. There are people right now that have been working in public schools that have been paying their loans for decades that are luckily getting some of their debts forgiven now, but paying that over decades at a time is sort of, I mean, I'd rather not have to pay it. And so that's where the military incentive comes in. But when that was already allowed to us, it to me, it doesn't make sense to take that away. And now, in order to have that access, you either have to be lucky to be born rich, lucky to get a scholarship, or you put on them boots, or put on them boots after you graduate. And I don't think that's I don't think that's a proper way to distribute care to people. Like, in exchange for care, you gotta go fight overseas.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that the benefits that a lot of the military get should be universal among all citizens, not just people in the military. And if that is not an incentive to join the military, if honor for wanting to protect your country is not good enough, then maybe we should change how the military operates and make it more above board, more honorable, right? Especially in regards to our foreign policy. Because the thing is that if you need to lure in people with free healthcare, free housing, free college, because if you were to give that all away to all the citizens, then they wouldn't join the military, then it's because they see something wrong with the military. So now you have to draw them in with that in order for them to serve. So it's like, because if you were to actually give it all, but then people would still willingly want to fight in the military, then that means that they see something good for what we're doing.
Right.
There's something that you also bring out here, which I think is actually very interesting. And it shows how you care for service members here in this article. It says, the final belief that our freedoms are protected by our military is undermined by the actions of our politicians, bureaucratic leaders, and neoliberal leaders in academia. The greatest threat to our celebrated freedoms, notably speech and bodily autonomy, are our own heads of state. You give an example. It says in Florida, where we live, Governor Ron DeSantis calls to ban pro-Palestinian groups from Florida colleges in the name of fighting anti-Semitism, as well as signing into the law the elimination of being able to protest around the residence of public officials, both clear and violations of our First Amendment right. We also have to acknowledge the blacklisting and doxing efforts of our liberal academic elite from institutions such as Harvard University and the students of this institution for the same reason DeSantis cites his ban on pro-Palestinian groups. This is textbook fascism. And I find this really heartening, because one of the things you're saying is basically the biggest risk to the safety of really our military are the heads of state that put them in harm's way. The biggest risk to our constitutional freedoms that we enjoy are a lot of these heads of state that are really owned by the corporations. So really, these big corporations are really the most danger to our service members, the biggest risk to our safety as far as our amendment rights, our unalienable rights, are really the corporations that actually own our government. So if you can speak to that just a little bit too as well.
Yeah. It's sort of like every time I would hear, the troops are over there fighting for my freedom. Oh, I fight for you to be able to say F the government. Oh, I fight for you to do. But it's like the threat of that freedom isn't coming from the people that you're being sent to kill or at best monitor, but the people that work under the military. Like, say if Ron DeSantis were to experience a protest akin to what Trump was experiencing for George Floyd, and he turned the Coast Guard, I think, onto the protesters and shot them with tear gas. That's where he took that picture of the Bible or whatever. But that was him using the military that's supposed to protect our freedoms against us. And who's to say that Ron DeSantis couldn't do? He can't. I don't think he can control the U.S. military. But it's sort of in the same vein. If something were to go wrong per se, then it would be the cops and military coming in to diffuse the response of the oppressed, because that's who they'll be used to suppress the oppressed group. And so it's a very it's kind of a sick twist of just adding more reverence to the service while ignoring that part there's no correlation between that and our freedoms. But yet we've been conditioned to believe military exists to protect our freedoms. That's it. But our freedoms aren't being harmed by, again, the people that the military is pointed at. It's being harmed by the people who are doing the pointing.
Yeah. And it's the orders that they're giving to our service members, which I feel is disgusting. So you're going to direct people of the National Guard to suppress people's free speech rights when they're really there to protect our freedoms, not suppress it. And so for anybody giving that order, it's really a slap in the face to the service members that you are literally ordering. So that's what it feels like to me. So I wanted to also direct this. And I love the way you end this. It says, and as a community of families, many of the relationships between service members and their families are a gleaming reflection of the golden rule, loving your neighbor as you do yourself. They look out for each other and operate as extended family members, unconditionally catering to the needs of each other when necessary. My challenge to us as personal beneficiaries of military service is to love our people and ourselves enough to demand this be the reality for millions of Black Americans and Americans of all backgrounds without the condition of serving the imperialist motives of the ruling class. Currently, our loved ones sacrifice their lives for a government content with overseeing the suffering of its citizens and contributing to the destruction of the world for the sake of capital and central power. So really, you're doing a call to action for us to treat everyone the same way that military families are treated.
Yes, everyone deserves that respect. Everyone deserves that. They deserve the right to live. And what you gain from the military service is a better chance of making a living and thriving. And that's something that I think should be a right to everyone.
That's beautiful, Cam. I appreciate that. And so that's one of my personal favorite articles by you. There was another one that you had recently wrote about the Congo, which I think is also brilliantly written. This also gives historical context. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in Palestine, and especially more specifically what's going on in Gaza. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are now starting to direct their attention to what's going on in Congo, especially in the recent knowledge of the mining of coltan, cobalt, diamonds, gold, and what have you. And so is the blurb says how imperialism and capitalism destroyed the heart of Africa. And you go in to talk about really what I would like to call an African Holocaust. So you talk about King Leopold II, who is, in my opinion, if you wanted to measure, murder for murder, he is as bad, or if not worse, than Adolf Hitler.
No, he's worse.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said he's worse.
Yeah. 10 plus million Congolese that were murdered by King Leopold II. And so you go into what he did. And can you speak about the connection between what happened to the Congolese people under King Leopold and the connection between that and the imperialism and colonialism and what we see going on in Gaza?
So the biggest tie between what's been happening in the Congo from King Leopold's entrance and the colonial settler project that is Israel against Gaza and Palestinians there's a resource motivation in there with the Congo. The Congo was very heavy with, I believe, rubber was the larger of what King Leopold was
Yes.
exporting, and back when European imperialism and colonialism was acceptable on a world stage, he was able to easily do that. He was able to go in. He tricked a lot of the Congolese chiefs through a journalist that did an expedition through Africa, like, who got to know these chiefs. King Leopold used him. He happily was also used to trick these chiefs into basically turning over land to King Leopold, and and he had that resource right at his fingertips, and dehumanizing the subjects there to get the resource. I mean, that's light work to put it that way. It was not hard for him to do that. With Israel, I believe there's the canal near the Suez Canal, if
Yeah.
remember correctly. So
Yes.
yeah, that is a if Israel has control over that region entirely, and with Israel being a friend to the United States, I mean, it's sort of the same thing. That's easy access from a region, be a proxy of a settler colonial project sponsored by us. And so yeah, that's where those commonalities are there. Nope. You there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I think my internet went out just for a second. But of course, this is why we need municipal broadband now, people. But yes, either that or it was the CIA. You never know. Yeah. So, but as far as what's going on as well in Congo, one of the things that I wanted to speak about also was the connection, and I actually talked about how it's all connected. Like even the diamond trade, the diamond mining that's going on in Congo, that's actually being done by Israeli companies that are mining the diamonds, and in keeping the diamond trade, they are artificially inflating the price of diamonds, even though diamonds are not rare. Diamonds are extremely plentiful. And so in order to make as much money, it has to be, spoken about, and it's made to seem like it's more rare. So therefore they can make more money. And so, for instance, just like all the things that you used that were rubber, back in the early 1900s, that contributed to what was going on in Congo, to, in February, when people are buying diamond rings for their loved ones, that is being inflated, and those have been mined by the Congolese, to our very phones, laptops, cars, and planes that use the cobalt and coltan in our very devices. Everything leads back to settler colonialism that includes Israel, that includes the United States, and includes countries like France, Belgium, the UK. These things are constantly, we're constantly using these things that are a product of these imperialist actions that are being done abroad, and it's heartbreaking. But one of the things I am heartened by is a lot of people are now talking about not buying another phone until the one you have falls off the wheels, so to speak. So I really love that. One of the things that I also wanted to touch on was further in the article, where, let me see, where was I at? Oh, you talked about the imperialism, where they actually assassinated a lot of the leaders, like Patrice Lumumba, in places like Congo. And so if you can discuss that, like, why don't we have another Patrice Lumumba in Congo right now?
Well, that could possibly be to the sort of the other guy that was elected with Patrice Lumumba, which was President Joseph Kasavubu. Kasavubu was not a heavy fan of full Congo independence. I'm not quite sure why, but he wasn't. Whereas what Patrice Lumumba wanted to do was make make the Congo its own independent nation, not just, this is the nation of Congo, but in terms of nationalizing their resources, everything will be within their control. And that was what Patrice Lumumba wanted. And when the mutiny had happened, following his rise into power, it was the country was just in a lot of disarray, and the UN did sort of come in to try to mitigate what was going on, but they weren't paying attention to every single aspect of where things were falling apart. And of course, Patrice reached out to the Soviet Union just for help, and he got the help. But with someone that is not afraid of dealing with, at the time, the U.S.'s or capitalism's biggest enemy, which is communist, the Soviet Union. Having someone like him there with his aspirations and his dealing with the Soviet Union, like, oh, he's got to go. And so you have Joseph Kasavubu, who dismissed him from his seat, and then you had Joseph Mobutu, who was I think a colonel in the Congolese army that was again happily used by the United States, the CIA specifically, to take Patrice Lumumba, and with him and the region, which I believe is called Katanga, that was against Lumumba, they had an open execution of him. And after that, with their vacuum now, the CIA backed a coup that was led by Joseph Mobutu against Joseph Kasavubu. I don't know why, with someone like Joseph that I guess was willing to play ball, but when he had someone like Mobutu who was staunchly anti-communist, I mean, that's where that happened. And then because he wasn't ruling from an actual standpoint of the betterment of his nation, he would be in power from like 1965 all the way till 1997, and that's 30 years of basically a U.S. puppet in charge of that area. Then after he leaves, there's another sort of dictator like leader that follows, and at that point, once the economy is in shambles the way the Congo was, it's kind of like no matter how good natured a leader coming into it would be, it's almost past the point of return. And and now, given the state of the Congo, it's a gold mine for corporations, especially electronic companies. It's a gold mine. There is, if we were to fix the Congo, grant them not grant them, but they take the right of their resources, then these companies, they can't profit as much as they can right now. And I think I put in the article, like, it is an incentive to keep the Congo that way. And so that's why I don't even think there's even a heavy push globally. I mean, there are, of course, the global South and allies that are against oppression, but the ones with the I guess the biggest, heaviest hitters, they benefit from the state of the Congo, and they'll probably do what they can to keep it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's more worth to them to keep it destabilized than it is to keep it stabilized, because if it's destabilized, especially right now, what's going on with the M23 gang, which is really, being pushed by Rwanda and Uganda. And on top of that, Rwanda and Uganda are both U.S.-backed regimes that, in the region. So
they're also heavily involved with the coltan trade during coltan fever. It was those countries, as well as militants within the Congo, that were exploiting those mines like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just goes to show, if you keep it destabilized, then that means that's land that's not owned. If it's land that's not owned, you can take it for free without ever having to pay anything out, without ever having to compensate the people who are on that land, without even having a fight from people on that land. So therefore, it's free and clear, and then you get to mine it, and then you get to pay the people who are mining it starvation wages, basically as slave wages, and then you get it for cheap, and then you get to sell it back to people like yourself and me in the form of electronics. So that's basically how the game is played, and people need to peep game, especially how imperialism is done. So there's another one that you wrote called The Value of Voting. This one was great because
this one was actually my favorite. This one's actually my favorite one that I did.
So please explain to me how voting third party is going to vote for Trump.
So I'm of the belief that it's not. A vote for a third party candidate is a vote for a third party candidate. It's kind of depressing how we've taken how we gained that right to vote in 1965, and how we have today is this, and we're practicing in this cycle of misery at this point. We have this illusion of choice, and it's also an illusion of options too. People have literally just automatically accept that, okay, either he's going to win or he's going to win. Therefore, if you were to break away from one of those two, because the electoral system isn't advantageous for someone like those people to win, they counted as taking away votes from one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But that's based off the assumption that if those options were there, or if those people weren't voting those options, that they actually would just come out and vote, when likely they just wouldn't show up and vote at all.
Sure.
And that I can't accept the talking point that a vote for a third party for the Democrats is a vote for Trump. It's not. I didn't vote for Trump. The person who voted for third party didn't vote for Trump. The person who voted for Trump was the person who voted for Trump. It's sort of like a lot of good-willed, liberal-minded people, which are a lot of people in my circle. They just sort of they've been kind of, I would say they've been beaten down by this process that we call a democracy, an election, and electoral politics, that they sort of given up any sort of political imagination that goes outside of, we got to vote red or we got to vote blue to stop red from winning. So sorry for the long-windedness, but no, I don't think a vote for third party is a vote for Trump.
It's interesting because there is a part in the article where you talk about the legislation of single-payer healthcare. It says legislation like single-payer healthcare as of 2021 is supported by 70% of Americans and a whopping 87% of Democratic voters. Yet when there was a Democratic majority in Congress, this bill wouldn't even be brought to a vote in the Dem-dominated House of Representatives. And even if the Senate was filibuster approved, the legislation would have been vetoed by a Democratic president, per his own words. And if anybody remembers, those words that were spoken of were by Joe Biden when he was on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, and said that if Medicare for All actually reached his desk, he would veto it, even if it was approved by a Senate and a House. And so moving down to this part, and you hit the nail on the head. It says, how could this be the case in a functioning democracy? It is quite simple. Our system is not a democracy, but an oligarchy, with most of our elected officials, at least on a national level, beholden to the corporate donors and lobbyists. According to Open Secrets, 130 insurance political action committees would donate over $11 million and $13 million to Democrats and Republican candidates, respectively, just from the last election cycle in 2022. So you're speaking about the value of voting. And really, if we're going to talk about, for instance, and I think we had this conversation a little bit earlier, via text message, was that you get a lot of people who will say, but Cam, they passed legislation on this good progressive thing this year. What do you want them to do? And remember the analogy I gave earlier?
No, run it back again. The analogy.
Yeah. So a lot of times people will say, like, for instance, let's say hypothetically, in the House, they vote to cancel student loan debt, right? Even though it can be signed by President Biden, it can be done by him through executive order, through the Department of Education, or he can do it through the Higher Education Act. Let's just put all that to the side, right? Let's say this is just a legislative thing that's being done in the House. But then who runs the House? House is being
right now, the Republicans.
Yeah. So if somebody says, well, they introduced it to the House, but they got voted down by Republicans, but the Democrats are trying to do good things, what would you say to somebody who says, well, they're still trying to do good things, so we might as well just vote for them?
I will say that please don't fall for the again the illusion of choice and difference. This bill that recently the bill that we were talking about, the to prevent hedge fund owners from buying homes, and they would also have to relinquish ownership of homes.
Mm-hmm.
That was introduced in the House by the Democrats this year,
Mm-hmm.
but the problem with hedge funds buying property has been since well before 2008, and even after 2008, they still were doing that. And this problem of people being able to buy homes because they were being bought up by these larger companies and hedge funds that existed back when Trump was in charge and back in the beginning of Biden's presidency. And yet they waited until they had no control over Congress to introduce this. And it makes you think, like, why would they do that if they actually wanted to get something done? And it's sort of like you gotta actually look at this not just in the lens of that's a good thing that they're introducing, but you got to take everything into account. Like, what is the political atmosphere right now? What's the body of the legislative branch right now? Who's in charge? You have to take all those into account before you just sort of look at something and think of it as, oh, that's great. That's why we should vote for them. In fact, I would take this as like, you should be insulted that they think they can trick you into thinking that they're good by intentionally sabotaging themselves at this point. Like, bringing up a bill that you know is going to fail in a Congress that you don't have a majority control over. It's at that point you're virtue signaling. Yeah. And we don't have time for virtue signaling. Like, we need results.
Mm-hmm. This actually is what you were referring to. It says a bill in Congress to stop hedge funds from owning U.S. single-family homes. And so let me just play this really quick as well so that people get, and this actually, and then this adds context, and then I can give my analogy.
You know, it can seem like an impossible task at times.
This morning, home buyers are running into a new challenge when making an offer in this hot housing market.
And my offer was declined.
Now we know who's buying up a majority of those homes. If you're trying to find a house in today's market, you know it can seem like an impossible task at times.
This morning, home buyers are.
So basically, you know, it's to stop people, these hedge funds, from buying these homes. And when people say, but JB and Kim, you know, they're doing good things. I'm gonna read my analogy that I said to you. And because I think it's worth noting that a lot of people who vouch for Democrats don't see this happen, or they feels like they don't detect it. It kind of feels like their bullshit-o-meter is kind of broken.
I would say that the GOP is great at instilling fear into its opponents, and I think they're like that for a reason. So well, I do think that when people sort of their blinders are on, their earmuffs are on, it's because there is a very obvious enemy in the GOP. And back when we were talking about, you know, why, you know, voting for third party is a vote for Trump, is people just automatically view Republican is the bad guy. Democrats are the only other party that could be in opposition for them. Therefore, to stop the badness of the GOP, we have to let the badness from the Dems slide, because they aren't explicitly advocating for our demise the same way that the GOP tends to do.
Yeah. And so for anybody who goes, Well, they did good. They passed some good legislation, and a lot of times that good legislation, and it may very well be good, but they always tend to pass it when it's a Republican-controlled House or a Republican-controlled Senate or a Republican-controlled president. And it's like, it always seems convenient that whenever they do the really good stuff is when the Republicans have control. So this is what it's like. So pardon me for a second. It's kind of like moving a sofa. If I don't want to move the sofa, but I don't want you to know that I don't want to move the sofa, I'll wait until it's a rainy day to make the attempt, but then say, sorry, I can't move the sofa because it's raining. Every time it's dry outside, I make excuses to why I can't move the sofa. So I only wait until it rains to make the attempt. So rainy days are Republican-controlled House, Senate, White House. Either or all of the above, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dry days are when everything's going and you have a Democrat-controlled House, Senate, or White House, or all the above. And then a lot of times when it's dry outside and you can move that sofa, you're like, can't do it. Sorry, my back. I'm sorry. It's just not feeling good today. Or, oh man, I smashed my finger in the door the other day, so I can't lift it. I can't do it. And so there's always an excuse. It's just like, for instance, what did Obama say in 2008? I know you were young back then. But what did Obama say back in 2008 on the campaign trail? He said that we are going to codify Roe v. Wade into law first thing as soon as I get into office. Cam, what happened?
Well, it looks like Roe v. Wade has been overturned in 2020, 23? What was it? So that didn't happen.
So look at here. And then what happened when they came back to Obama and said, didn't you say that you were going to codify Roe v. Wade into law? Well, that's not much of a priority.
Yeah.
That's not a priority. Even though it was a dry, sunny day, they had a Democrat president, a majority in the House, and a super majority in the Senate.
Filibuster proof.
Filibuster proof. And see what they did? It was a dry day. They could have moved the sofa. In fact, not only could they have moved the sofa, but they even had a furniture dolly to move it. And they didn't. Now, let's go to 20. Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could have gotten health care for all. In fact, we were in the middle of a pandemic. Section 1881 of the Social Security Act means that the President of the United States actually has the power to give everybody across the nation health care in an emergency. And did Biden do it?
Can you hear my dog in the background? Is it too loud?
A little bit, yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. We like dogs around here. But could we have given everybody health care in 2020?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have even meant legislation. He could have used emergency powers. Right?
Yeah.
That would have been an easy lift for the squad, for the progressives. They could have said it on the House floor. They could have called a press conference to say, hey, the president could actually give everybody health care right now.
There's a lot that they could have done. And it goes to show that this plan to take over the Democratic Party was a fool's errand, and it's not something that's capable of happening. Now, I did have a friend of mine pose the question, like, well, I mean, why would that be the case if, MAGA and the Tea Party just were able to overtake the Republican Party? Like they took over. And to answer that is because the Tea Party and MAGA doesn't have any sense of opposition to empire and capitalism. They could just be wild, speak as if they're anti-establishment while still, doing their bidding. They're just, they have taken over the image, I would say, of the Republican Party as well as the base. But they were able to do so because it was a challenge of decorum. It didn't have anything to do with really policy that was against what regular Republicans were doing. Whereas with the Democrats and what the Justice Democrats were supposed to do, the Justice Democrats were supposed to pull the Democratic Party back to the left, which would be going against empire and capitalism. And since both Republicans and Democrats serve the same people, serve empire and capital, a left taking over the Democratic Party is not comparable to an extreme right taking over an already right-wing sector of our political system.
Yeah. And whenever I talk about the ratchet effect, a lot of people know what the ratchet effect is when the Democratic Party is in power, they do not allow anything to move to the left, but they always concede to the right. And once they concede to the right, they go further right. So the Democratic Party of yesteryear, the Democratic Party of the 80s is further to the left than the Democratic Party of today. And we always continuously cede to the right. And we cede not just more to the right, but we cede more to the corporations, which was brought out beautifully in your article. So there is another one that you talked about with the trouble in Black America. Says discussing the Atlantan deacon sentenced to death by an Atlanta Police Department officer and how the leadership of Atlanta will ensure the continuance of death by law enforcement. I just want to go over this really quickly. I actually talked about this about Johnny Hallman, about him being tased to death by a police officer, and how can you talk about the connection between this and the leadership, the Black leadership in Atlanta, as well as the building of Cop City? Can you connect those dots for us?
Yeah. So first, it's insane that this man was killed for not signing a ticket. I'm not sure. I'm not police, so I don't get the training that police get. But I don't know what would make someone think that a logical progression from someone refusing that type of order is murder, be it intentional or not. But that goes into the connection of what we will expect to see in Cop City, the development of that, because Cop City, and as a lot of us know, a lot of state police departments, they do training with the Israeli Defense Forces in Israel, and we've seen how the IDF treats those that they're occupying. And those are just reflected. I don't know what came first, chicken or the egg, who taught who, but it's their tactics in dealing with an occupied population are essentially the same. You respect my authority regardless of how I present it to you, regardless of what you have going on. If you do not respect this authority, I could potentially get away with killing you.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what will be spread out when this type of facility that is teaching military tactics to these cops here. They're teaching this facility is to train cops to be even more militant than they already are. And how I would connect that to the leadership of Atlanta is that Atlanta's leadership is almost 100% Black. And like we said earlier, Atlanta itself is the #1 spot for Black businesses, which is a big thing that a lot of the Black excellence group praises and wants to see more of, which is Black businesses. And has the most, like I said, one of the most rich Black people there. So you would think that this would be a bastion for a Black paradise. It's basically a modern day Tulsa, Oklahoma. And yet the economic way of living in Atlanta for Black people is sort of it contradicts the paradise face of it. I believe the sort of agreed upon standard of living for one person to stay in a bedroom would be about a little bit over $60,000 a year for one bedroom apartment. The median Black wealth, which is median income, is a better accurate detector of where a population's sort of money is stacked around versus average. And the median Black income is $20,000 lower than the standard than the cost of living there. But then people will bring, this new mayor, even though he, as well as the Black mayor before him and the Black mayor before her, were very big on pushing this the Cop City into fruition. People point out, he's doing stuff for affordable housing. Well, affordable housing, in order for one to even qualify, they'd have to make half of the median income of the entire area. And the entire area's median income is $40K. So you have to be making around $20K to qualify for affordable housing. And even so, to build new homes is kind of, I'm not quite sure the capitalist connection between being able to do those, how that's beneficial in that sense. But there's already like 30,000 plus empty homes and vacant homes in Atlanta. But when you have something up to where the cost of living is 20,000 more than what you can make, and in order to have a place to live, you have to make half of what you can make, you're setting up people to basically be at the mercy of these new cops that come in, because as we know, financial struggles or poverty has a correlation to crime. And when you have more people that can't access a comfortable state of living, I mean, they could do it in various ways, of course. You get roommates. There's a lot of ways they can, circumvent that. But if that's the case, to where it's likely still going to go up, that cost of living, you're going to leave more and more people behind, and they will be at the mercy of these new cops that are coming in, that are militarized and trained just like the IDF. And so that's where all of that becomes connected, where this Deacon Hallman's death is just a microcosm of what to expect in a police state.
And you see what happened to Tortuguita, who was murdered by the Atlanta Police Department just for peacefully protesting in the forest. So that really was a huge hit as well. So this is one of your next articles, The Terrorist of Yore. I love the way you began this. It says, observing the nuanced history of resistance movements towards liberation. And you did a fake out. You faked me out in the beginning of this article. But here in the beginning, you have Nat Turner's Rebellion on the upper left-hand side. And then you have Nelson and Winnie Mandela, part of the ANC that fought against African apartheid. And then on the bottom left, you had the Armed Mississippi Freedom Movement. And then you have the Palestinian Liberation Organization back in 2020. So, but you faked me out, dude. It says in 1948, a white supremacist colonial settler regime engaged in one of the most inhumane styles of governance known as apartheid. From that movement, the indigenous population experienced mass displacement from their homes and intense brutality from their occupier. These natives would develop various forms of resistance, ranging from strictly nonviolent to armed militants. Once the nonviolent actions failed to appeal to the morality of the occupier and was met with indiscriminate violence, the armed resistance would commit acts of violence that would result in the deaths of settler forces and civilians. The largest of these resistance groups was designated as a terrorist organization by the occupiers and their allies, including the United States. It's quite reasonable to assume that I'm referring to Palestinian struggle against Israel. However, I'm actually describing apartheid South Africa. This practice would still be praised and utilized by Israel. So you weren't even talking about Palestinians. You were talking about South Africans.
I didn't even realize how much in common those stories have, even starting around the same time. It's
crazy. And so when it comes to the link between actual resistance movements against the occupying force, I forgot somebody. I've heard this saying before: one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Yeah, that's basically it.
And so it's just like, wait a minute, who occupied the land first? Like, not okay. My question is, who tried to steal the land first? Right? Mm-hmm. Who was on that land living peacefully without any trouble, but then another person comes in to occupy this, take the resources, and then they kill the people who are inhabiting the land. And so then, do those people who were originally inhabiting that land, do they have a right to resist that occupying force? And a lot of people, if you were to ask them just in general, without any precondition of knowing what we're talking about, then a lot of people say, well, of course, right? Because that's your land. Or it's like, can I just bust through the front door of your house and then say, this is my house now?
Apparently some people think you can. So.
Well, those people are typically billionaires, but we don't give a fuck about them. But my thing is, a lot of people would say no. And so, unfortunately, they honestly they would side with the people who are oppressed. But then the moment you put the name Israel to it, then that's when people start to twist their brains and do mental gymnastics and go, well, no, it's not the same, when it is the same.
Yeah, I think a lot of the country, mainly I think a lot of white America, has been conditioned to see rebellions legitimate, unfortunately, solely based off of the race of who is resisting. It's something they gotta grow up out of, but that's up for the white allies to teach them that.
Yep. And so you link those two together very well in this article, and I really encourage people to read that one. And then there was your latest article that you came out with that I wasn't expecting you to come out with. You came out with yesterday, and I was just like, what? You wrote another article? Yesterday? What in the hell? Dude was burning in midnight oil.
Oh, yeah, it was done at midnight. Yeah.
Florida's pathway to build a community-focused economy says bringing North Dakota to Orange County public banks. What are they and how can they serve the community? And you talk about the link to public banks and how it can actually benefit all of us. This was unexpected. And wait, who's that guy there? Wait a minute. Oh my goodness, you actually bring up what me and Mr. Nelson Betancourt were talking about. So was this a subject that really just like caught your attention, that you were like, wait a minute, this is something that we need to talk about more? Like, can you expound on that just for a second?
Yeah. One, I kind of felt like I was a lot of my articles were kind of they had a lot of negative focus, even though I would try to finish up all of them with some sort of call to action that's positive. I think a lot of them were negative in genesis. So with the public bank, I remember I was just thinking about it. I was like, I haven't written about anything really like positive. And then I realized that there hasn't been a lot of story coverage on the Orange County actually putting committees together to discuss the establishment of a Orange County public bank. And so I'm like, okay, the type of journalism I want to do, of course, is very much educational based, but I also want to keep up with some topics as well. Yes. And so something like that is news that I feel like a lot of people are not actually aware of, like, at all, even here in Florida. So when I wrote it, I was like, I'm actually writing about something positive, and it's something that a lot of people don't know about, because I literally would search Orlando's public bank, and of course they have a website, but as far as like articles and different news publications sort of speaking about it, I didn't see any. So I figured let's push it out there. It's literally in our state.
That's awesome. And so, and it's one of the things that I am heartened to see, because the thing is that a lot of times we on the left, we're great at diagnosing the issues. We're great at talking about the problems, but what solutions do we have in order to push and move things forward? And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on also, I wanted to use you as a positive example. People look at what KD is doing, and look at what he is accomplishing, not just through doing the writing and putting his passion, mixing it with purpose, but also using the skills that he has in order to push forward also positive things. For instance, one of the things that you actually talked about was not just, and you're talking about the value of voting, not just voting third party, but you were also talking about voting for ballot initiatives and trying to get those out. And so that is something I think that a lot of us need to start to take hold of, is that when we say that we save us, it's not just in whenever we go to protests. Some of the things that we do have to do aren't so sexy, right? It's not like, oh my God, I'm going to be featured in this article for doing this radical action that, catches a lot of eyes. Sometimes the most radical actions are the things that people don't really see.
Yep.
And so I just want to thank you for, also bringing in not just these are our problems, but hey, here's another potential solution that we can look forward to in our future. And so I just want to thank you, dude, for writing about that, because I didn't want to be one of the only people to actually talk about this subject. I like seeing other people talk about some of the similar subjects, especially ones that are more of a positive direction too.
Right. Honestly, I write the way I write. Basically, that comes from my parents. More specifically, my dad. If they're both watching, I don't know if they are, but hey, parents. But when I would talk to my dad about politics, he's very much a guy that needs straightforward solutions and pathways and options. Because I mean, like many people of his mindset, I mean, he sees something wrong, but that's where the political imagination sort of lacks. There's no really sense of what else can we do. So I write and I make sure that I'm answering questions that I would hope he can grasp and understand. And so I generally want to make sure that while I'm informing, I am offering viable, logical solutions that aren't pie in the sky, that are achievable. Almost anything that we want to do is very much achievable. It's just taking the first step to start it, which I think is the hardest part. But once you do it, everything falls in place, especially if you're going the right way and doing the right things on the way. It's yeah, that's my pops right there.
Hey, pops.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate you for having me on it to talk about these, and I appreciate you for being a point of inspiration for me stepping into this realm of media. Like I said, I never thought I would do something like this when I first got into politics in general, and I'm grateful for those that I met on the way, which includes you, that got me to this point.
Yeah. And first of all, to your dad, look, you've raised an amazing son, and I am so proud to be working with him. And just to focus on that, because you were talking about how you want to bring solutions to people as far as your work. You're not only doing that as far as the writing. When we meet and we do direct action, for instance, we did the delivering of mutual aid as far as giving toiletries out to the homeless. We're raising money right now for our next mutual aid action that we're doing as well. This just shows that you're not only talking about it, but you're also trying to be the solution in areas so that you can help people who are disenfranchised, especially people among us in our communities.
Right. At the end of the day, the people who are going to save us is us. Let's take the plate instead of accepting the crumbs.
Take the plate. Grab yourself a plate, baby. We're about to cook out. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring out. As far as your Substack, of course, it's in the link in the description below. I also put it in the chat a couple of times already. So if you guys have not subscribed to KD's Substack as well, he does amazing work. I know he's going to come out with something again very soon. It's already probably in the works. He just ain't telling me. So
it is something cooking a little bit.
Yeah. Let the brother cook. Let the brother cook. All right. So he's cooking in the kitchen. So be sure to keep an eye out, subscribe so that you get those email notifications whenever those Substack articles come out. I try to share on my social media whenever I can so that you guys can also see it. Remember, he's also part of the RBN Orlando chapter. So make sure if you're not following him on Twitter, please make sure to give him a follow so that you can give him some love, because I think that's also important too. I forgot to put that in the description, but I will also put that in the chat. And, give him a follow on Twitter, because the thing is that he also will post some gems as well on there too as well. So please make sure to do that. So also any other place they can find you or any other place they can catch you, Cam?
No, really just Substack and Twitter. My Instagram, I guess you could also find me there. I post things in my story, but I really think I've been a lot of my stuff has been shadow banned on there. My little brother actually told me over Thanksgiving that he couldn't see my my stories.
Oh wow.
So
yeah, a lot of times we get shadow banned for speaking the truth on a lot of different things that a lot of people, the powers that be, just do not want us to hear or don't want other people to hear and see. But I see it, and yeah, it's really good stuff. So as far as my next story, are you available to stick around for the next story, or do
Oh
you have
yeah.
to? All
Oh
right,
yeah.
cool. So I'm just going to do just a bit of a house cleaning first, and then we can move on to the next story. This is going to be kind of a harrowing story, but I want to make sure that I get this in as well because this just came out like yesterday. So this is going to be a very important story to get into. But if you guys have not already, please make sure to like the stream. If you have not, please like, share, and subscribe for some Jaybefaunt deliciousness because that's what you get whenever you come tune in to me on my channel. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can also go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys can get those email notifications as well. Now, just to give a big shout out and thank you to all the people who are patrons on Patreon, on Coffee, or send me any type of mutual aid from PayPal. Thank you so very much. As you guys know, yes, I have been demonetized for reasons pertaining to speaking the truth and showing what's going on in Gaza. So if you guys have not, you guys can support the channel via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you so very much. Thank you to all of you. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this essential and vital work in independent media. Always support independent media. That includes people like myself. That includes people like KD here as well. Now, if you guys have not already, I also just want to share as well, which I completely forgot. I took it down because, well, I'm simple-minded like that, but I have it up right now. So we're going to share with you guys the tiers. If you guys would like to subscribe to my Patreon, they are here and ready to go. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go become JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. So thank you so very much for all your support as well. And I want to give a special shout out to new patron HDLZ. Thank you so very much for becoming a patron on Patreon. It is very much appreciated and helps keep the lights literally on. So thank you. All right. So I just want to go over the chat really quick because a few people had some things to say as well. They had some questions. Just to say hello to Jacqueline Hemming says, hello, hey, everybody. Good to see you, Jacqueline. Kurt Boss says, hey, Jacqueline, to hey, saying to Jacqueline. Also, Janice Anderson coming in saying, hi, all. Dwayne coming in saying, howdy, y'all. Dwayne also has this to say. This article by KD Lewis is interesting. More needs to be done to highlight the fact that we have become a militaristic society where you must serve to be treated as a full citizen of the country. Did you want to react to that?
Yeah, that's basically what I was trying to get at. In order for us to receive the basically what should be an expectation of a modern society, you know, given to its citizens, in order to get that, you have to exchange your body in that sense. And I feel like that's something we need to separate. Now, I'm not telling people to stop joining the military. I mean, I'm not going to judge someone in that way, but at least be an advocate. Like, say, you know, this is what I have. Let's fight for getting this for all of us.
Share the wealth, right?
Yeah. Sharing the wealth.
I got you. Yeah, I pick up what you're throwing down. All right, thank you. Jacqueline says, can I ask a question in the chat? Sure. It seems that a majority of people in the U.S. either have a family who have served in the military or they know someone that has served in the military. Is that right?
I would think so.
I have an uncle as well as a grandfather that are military veterans. So, yes, we have pretty much anybody and everybody, especially if they served when we had the draft. A lot of people had to serve either that or go to jail during back then. I think the last draft that we had was Vietnam. So a lot of people that we have in our families, like my grandfather, technically step grandfather, he served in the Korean War. So yeah, absolutely. So the next one is Kill Your Egregores coming in, saying happy Saturday to everybody. So good to see Kill Your Egregores. Gamer for Life is also in the chat saying, I'm listening while doing some chores. Well, sweep a little bit for me, will you, Kill Your Egregores? Happy 60th birthday to Jacqueline. Happy birthday to you. Hopefully it's a really good one. Good to see you spending your time with me on your birthday. Wadi is also here in the chat saying hello to everybody. We also have Adam coming in saying many of them get their training in Israel. Yes, the police get their training from the IDF in Israel. SG says exactly, the affordable housing is a con. Imagine if areas income $150 average, then if you make minimum wage, there's no way you can even qualify for affordable housing.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically that's what we see going on right now.
And I got to put a quick correction out there. That wasn't my dad in the chat. That's actually my mom using my dad's name. She corrected me.
All right, cool. Well, good to see you, Ma. All right, so what are we talking about today? Just to go over. So we already talked to KD says when passion meets purpose. Man, I love that thumbnail. I did so good.
It is. It's a fire thumbnail.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to be talking about two other subjects. The subjects we're going to be talking about is this is going to be a tough one. RIP Dr. Refaat al-Arir. We're going to be talking about that, which is going to be heartbreaking, but it needs to be talked about. And then we're going to be talking about U.S. votes for genocide. So we're going to be starting off with that. So there was a vote recently that was done in the UN General Assembly that was really just in a sense, sentencing more innocent Palestinians to death by way of raising a hand. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. We're going to take a look at this from one of the diplomatic representatives in the UN. We're going to hear what he has to say, and then we will talk about it on the other side, Katie.
We do not support calls for an immediate ceasefire. This would only plant the seeds for the next war, because Hamas has no desire to see a durable peace, to see a two-state solution. We do.
What are your thoughts on that, Cam, especially about his claims that Hamas wouldn't obey a ceasefire or agree to a ceasefire, or they would violate one?
So I'm not a huge expert on this, but from what I was able to absorb throughout this whole conflict, my memory serves me. I mean, back in 2002, Hamas agreed on a two-state solution, right? Or around that time, they had no opposition to it at that time. Even in their charter that was updated in 2017, doesn't even call for the elimination of Jewish people. I don't think Hamas is adverse to peace the way that the U.S. is sort of gaslighting us to believe. And I also like to point out it's quite disgusting and despicable how this administration has used two Black people or people of color to basically be the face of continuing genocide. It's quite gross.
Of course. So let me share this, because this was really despicable by the representative of the United States. This gentleman decided to do this during the speech. So the representative of the United States in the United Nations, he is up here on the upper right-hand corner as the representative from Palestine is speaking, I want you to focus on what the representative of the United States is suddenly doing. So take a look.
I now resume my role as President of the Council. I now give the floor to the permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine.
Mr. President, this is the moment of truth. This is a turning point in history, and it is beyond regrettable. It is disastrous that the Security Council was again prevented from rising to this moment.
Speaking of rising to this moment, the United States representative decided to start playing on his phone while the representative for Palestine is speaking.
I mean, it makes it easier to, to sort of make that decision and raise your hand like that if you just not listen to what's being said. You gotta. I question the hearts and souls of these people when they get into these positions. I really do. I try to believe a lot of people are inherently good, but when it comes to this stuff, there's gotta be something wrong.
Yeah. Let's continue to hear what the representative of Palestine said, and we're listening to what he says versus the representative of the United States has said. So let's continue.
To this moment, to uphold its clear responsibilities in the face of this grave crisis, threatening human lives and threatening regional and international peace and security.
So that was the representative of Palestine that was speaking, and he was being ignored rudely by the U.S. representative. And so just shout out to Richard Medhurst for sharing that. And I know Richard Medhurst was actually on Danny Haiphong earlier. I didn't get to watch it because I was doing some channel and editing work, but I'll try to catch it later. But shout out to Richard Medhurst for that. And so the ultimate, for what I observe, is the horrible act of basically just condemning an entire population to more shelling in Gaza was this moment here that I'll be sharing right now. So here we go.
En contra.
Against.
I want you to observe there's the United Kingdom, the US, Albania, Brazil, China. Their hands are down. There's only one hand up.
Yeah, I've never seen a black person do the Sick Howl salute before, but I mean, it's I mean, 2023, anything could happen at this point.
Yep. Didn't have this on my bingo card. Let's continue.
Abstenciones.
Abstentions.
The UK abstained. So they didn't vote.
We're heartless, but it's not as heartless. It's just, yeah.
El resultado de la votación.
The result of the vote is as follows: 13 votes in favor, 1 against, 1 abstention.
El proyecto de...
The draft resolution has not been approved due to the veto of a permanent member of the Security Council.
So basically meaning a stop for a ceasefire. I'm sorry, a vote for a ceasefire would mean that Israel would need to stop shelling and basically murdering Palestinians. But because the United States has veto power, their one vote overturned 13 other votes.
That makes zero sense to me. So I don't know how the Security Council is like formulated, if it's like if they switch around or something like that, or if those are like permanent members. But like, what if the US was out here actually directly invading, let's say, all of South America? What if we just invaded all of South America and the Security Council votes, hey, you should probably not do that? If the US is there, could the US veto like themselves from being like admonished? That I don't understand what that purpose, the purpose of having that veto power is. Who does that help, having that?
It is permanently just in the United States. So basically, for me, it feels like the UN is a vassal for the United States. It's basically a tool for the United States to say, well, we have it's a power move over the world, because if the UN votes by a majority to do a particular thing in the world, if the United States doesn't want it done, then it doesn't get done. So and the United States uses this veto power, especially when it comes to either itself committing atrocities or its allies committing atrocities. And if all the other member states want to vote against it, but then if the United States says no, everybody has to go with what the United States says. And really, there really is no power against the United States. So my question is there any type of worldwide democracy in regards to the United Nations?
I wouldn't think so, since the whole world wants an actual ceasefire, and it turns out one singular vote it can get in the way of that is baffling. I don't even understand. It boggles my mind how that is accepted as like, oh yeah, this is common practice. Yeah, this is how it works. Oh, we can't change it. Like, what?
Yeah, it is ridiculous. So here's an article out of the Associated Press that says U.S. vetoes UN resolution backed by many nations demanding immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Jeez Louise. It says United States vetoed the United Nations resolution Friday, backed by almost all other Security Council members and dozens of other nations demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Supporters called it a terrible day and warned of more civilian deaths and destruction as the war goes into its third month. The vote in the 15-member council was 13-1, with the United Kingdom abstaining. The United States isolated stands, reflecting a growth of fracture between Washington and some of its closest allies over Israel's months-long bombardment in Gaza. France and Japan were among those supporting the call for a ceasefire. Interesting. It says in a vain effort to press Biden administration to drop its opposition to calling for a halt for fighting, the foreign ministers of Egypt, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey were all in Washington on Friday. That was yesterday. But their meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken took place only after the UN vote. Along with the vote, the Arab diplomats' mission served to shift responsibility more squarely onto the United States for protecting Israel from growing demands to stop the airstrikes that are killing thousands of Palestinian civilians. So even Russia, Dmitry Pawlowski said, this is one of the most darkest days in the history of the Middle East. Says the death sentence to thousands, if not tens of thousands, and more civilians in Palestine and Israel, including women and children. So
yeah, man, I it's everything about what goes on, especially with this conflict. It's extremely disheartening. I can't count how many times I would just randomly like cry throughout the week just thinking about all of this and how nobody with the power to stop it is doing anything to stop it. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Let me ask you this. Say hypothetically they do stop Hamas. Is that going to be the end of a militant group within Gaza?
No. Like, our history, CIA's term blowback is literally like destroying these people's lives will not destroy militant opposition to it. It'll be another group that will be deemed a terrorist that at some point, if we just let everything run amok, like maybe we'll see people start just nuking populations and they say, oh, there's a bunch of terrorists there.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to bring out was this particular video. A Palestinian was interviewed on television, and I want you guys to read what they say is translated into English. So let me share this with you guys. And yeah, let's go.
مش كمان حابة تحكي
حابة أوصل كمان رسالتي لنتنياهو لإسرائيل كمان بحب أوصل لنتنياهو هاي الرسالة نتنياهو انت وعدوينك طبعا هذه الرسالة مش لإله لحاله إله هو وعدوينه اللي هم عدوينه اللي هم الإسرائيل الصهيوني طبعا بحب أوصل رسالتي لهم مش رح نستسلم.
Little boy says, of course, I want to send my message to them. This is to Netanyahu and his allies that we will not surrender to you. This little boy has to be no more than 7 or 8 years old.
That's some revolutionary spirit in that boy right there.
Mm-hmm. He has more to say. He says, you are going to surrender to us. And I love when he says this, and there is going to come a day when we're going to teach you politeness. Wow.
نعلمكم فيه الأدب يعني هاي اللي بقدر أحكيه بس لأنه هان صارت الناس يعني هان صارت تجيب جزايز مية الجار يروح على الجار يقول له بالله في عندك جزازتين مية ندبر حنا مش إلهم مش للكبار إلنا إحنا يعني أطفال غزة تعبنا متنا بدنا هدنة بدنا وقف إطلاق نار بدنا نروع بيوتنا إحنا حنضلنا صامدين وحنرجع على أرضنا حتى لو ما رضيتوش حنرجع لأرضنا ونرجع نقعد فوق.
He says we're going to return to our land and sleep on top of the rubble and eat on top of the rubble.
I feel like you would never hear if you ask that to an Israeli. No, I don't think they would. I don't think they'd have that same enthusiasm.
Yeah.
الردم ننام فوق الردم ناكل فوق الردم.
شو صار ببيتكم؟ بيتكم انقصف ولا أموره تمام؟
لا انقصف احنا شمال غزة أبراج الندى الشمال كله يعني انهدم مالش فيه شيء.
So his home was bombed and his home is no longer standing. And so when people say that they're trying to destroy Hamas, it's like, okay, all right. But now you're creating more militants right now. And so that young little person will eventually grow up to fight the occupation.
Yep.
Maybe it's just me, but I know the answer to how to prevent that little person from becoming a militant. You want to hear?
Yeah, sure. Lay it on me.
You end the siege on Gaza. you end the illegal occupation, and you end the apartheid. That's how you turn that little person from being a militant to wanting to be, let's say, a doctor or a journalist.
Mm-hmm. Like if you take away their enemy to fight, then why would they fight? There's no one to fight then.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like, if you're fighting for your home, then what? So the thing is that you got to remember, these little kids are literally seeing the carnage themselves. I couldn't imagine the things that I've seen on the ground. I couldn't have imagined seeing at that age. Imagine being 11, 12 years old, having to help carry a dead body. It's just horrible. And so the very least that they could have done was say, you know what? Yeah, we want to vote for a ceasefire.
And wasn't a stipulation a part of that is a release of hostages as well?
I think so. In fact, let me share what actually Dr. Cornel West actually spoke on this as well. He says the U.S. veto at the UN to block a vote to end Israel's barbaric genocidal campaign in Gaza is an act of spiritual obscenity and moral bankruptcy. We must fight to cast light on the precious Palestinian children and innocent women and men being slaughtered by Israeli forces enabled by the U.S. government. We must have an immediate ceasefire, end of the siege, and end the vicious Israeli apartheid. So he's talking about this.
Oh my God! Just when you scroll down, the first you see is those Israeli flags. My Twitter has been full of Israeli flags and Ukrainian flag wearers that are just pumping out that Hasbara like it's like they're rabbits making babies. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. The funny part is this says completely dishonest message. No, it's not. He says if you actually cared about civilian life, you would call on Hamas to immediately surrender and release hostages. If they release the hostages, which they have been doing, then they have been releasing the hostages. Asking them to surrender basically means you're asking them to relinquish their legal right by international law to resist illegal occupation. So that's what you're doing. And this person says, so the people of Gaza and Israel can start working towards long-term peace. Netanyahu even stipulated that his goal is to take over the land of Gaza so that no Palestinian can ever return. That's the goal. If that's the goal, then the goal was never peace. And in fact, I would tell this person to actually listen to exactly what Netanyahu says, because his goal was never peace in the first place. And as you brought out earlier, and what happened, that the militant groups actually were looking towards a two-state solution, were looking to the ending of apartheid so that they can still coexist with Israel. But Israel did not want that. And so they actually, especially in the March of Return, they were actually going to the fence, going to the gates to advocate peacefully for them to return to their homes. And Israeli snipers were shooting at their legs, shooting them in the head so that they could not even protest. And they were doing it peacefully.
Yep. BDS is a peaceful means of resistance that has been demonized and made illegal in states here. The people who are behind Israel do not want peace. They don't want it. They don't believe in it.
Yeah. So just to get a good identification out of the representative that followed the rules of his handlers. So Simon Godek says, this is Robert A. Wood, Deputy U.S. Ambassador to the UN, who voted no on a resolution calling for the immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza that everyone else supported. Additionally, the fact that he was fiddling with his phone while Palestinian diplomat was speaking speaks volumes, showing his disregard for human lives and peace. To be fair, he has just relayed decisions from Biden and Blinken. However, he could have resigned instead of opposing the world and backing war. This whole situation is a mess, revealing that Israel and the military-industrial complex have more control over U.S. politicians than its citizens. So, that's who he is. So, there's something that I wanted to read. And I saw this and it smacked me in the face. I'm going to read this, and I told them that I was going to read this thread, not the entire thread, but it is a doozy. I'm not sure if you saw this, but what's going on in Palestine right now against the Palestinian people, it could be regarded as another Holocaust. And it's not me saying it. It's a Jewish person saying it.
Mm.
So this is from Chronic Dyke. That's the name of the person who posted this. And this person is Jewish. They say, after reflecting on it a bit, I realized that my and other white Jews' gut discomfort with comparing Netanyahu to Hitler isn't about technicalities or anti-Semitism, but is rooted in white supremacy. The Holocaust was terrible, but in most ways, it wasn't unique. The Holocaust is unique in being taken seriously as a genocide on a retroactively white people by white people. I don't feel comfortable addressing the issue of Jews' historical race, but white supremacy has a dominating role in how we talk about the Holocaust. The discussion of Holocaust is A, unique, B, the result of an evil man, C, a genocide of 6 million helpless Jews, is all a plot to feed an idea of Holocaust exceptionalism. The Holocaust sticks out as something that happened in the imperial core, but isn't unique in that regard. See settler colonial countries. It sticks out as mass violence of whites on retroactively white people, but probably isn't unique there either. The numbers of the Holocaust are extreme, but the discussion of the Holocaust as 6 million Jews is widely unhelpful to any revolutionary because horrifying, context-less figures are useless. We should be discussing A, the other people who were targeted in the Holocaust and why, and B, what 6 million actually means, roughly 2/3 of European Jewish population and more than half of the global Jewish population. We should be talking about the Holocaust in a way that focuses on the future and action, on action and preventing and struggle. And we should be talking about the Holocaust in connection with capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism. Did you want to react so far?
All I can say is that, yeah, the number has been a big talking point of people denying this current Holocaust. They like to point at the Palestinian population is not dwindling in the millions the same way it could be compared to the Holocaust of the Jews. But what this person is talking about is actually looking at what is in practice to be compared, and not just the magnitude of death. I think she's right on.
Yeah. Because we cannot forget about the other people that were killed in the Holocaust that were not Jewish. If you look at the history of what happened during the Holocaust, the first people that they actually came for were communists.
Mm-hmm.
Communists were the first to go. It was the trades workers as well. A lot of people who were involved in that. They also went after the gays. If you look at the gay people a lot of the gay people, who were not Jewish at all. They wore the pink triangle. Then you also had the people who may have been transgender. Then you also have the people who were Jehovah's Witnesses. They also had the purple triangle. So they were also specially targeted as well because Jehovah's Witnesses opposed the Nazi Party, which I'm a former Jehovah's Witness, so I know. I read the history. And so there were many different groups that were also included, that were including German people who were of German nationality that were also murdered during the Holocaust. So when we talk about the Holocaust in its entirety, it wasn't just against the Jews, but the Jews were targeted principally as well. So I think that's also an important piece. So it says, instead, Hitler is made into a persona of evil, and the Holocaust is made into this one-off historical event. It's now somewhere between rhetorical device and a cultural touchstone. And in this way, anyone who makes a comparison to Hitler is seen as anti-Semitic. The Holocaust just has to be the worst event in history, and Hitler has to be the worst human possible. Otherwise, we accept that it could and does and is and will happen again. We have to recognize that this awful, awful event has lots of company in history. And remember what you and I talked about what happened in Congo under King Leopold II, right? That also was a Holocaust. Cam, if you want to respond.
No, I got nothing else to add to that. It was a Holocaust.
We recognize that the unique aspects of the Holocaust, but its overall character is far from it. And in recognizing that, we see that more clearly what was lost from Jewish people. No longer do we, white Jews, have to hold it up as a rhetorical device or a talisman. We can recognize that the vast majority of human stories and richness of culture that was developed was extinguished to a devastating degree, and find common cause with others who have faced this. We are not unique, and so we are not alone. And if instead we stick to the Holocaust as unique myth, we can pretend that violence towards others isn't as bad as what happened to us. That is an easy shortcut to thinking that Israel is justified in doing what it's doing, which it never has been and never will be. It says not only must never again be never again for anyone, but it must be this has already happened again in many forms. Fascist and or capitalist imperialist violence is an everyday and global occurrence. We have to pivot to not anymore.
Agreed.
And so I confidently say that Netanyahu is just as bad as Hitler. Two charismatic fascists who use convoluted ideology as justification in order to the massacre and mass oppression of an entire people. Two awful human beings with military resources and large followings. Because if we step back from the mythology of Holocaust uniqueness, we can see that it is not about numbers. It's about ideology, history, culture, fascism, colonialism, imperialism, capitalism. We owe it to history, to each other, and to Palestine to act accordingly.
It falls in line with the same type of mentality that white people would be in. And I don't want to sound like I'm an anti-white person or anything, but white people tend to be able to, it's their inability to decenter themselves in conversations and talks of historical events. And it's also they have a tendency to view to try to make a unique victimhood type I don't know. They'll like to take up victimhood where they can find it. Like they have to search for victimhood to be a part of, and that's just it's it's a part of white supremacy. My stuff matters when I'm hurt. That matters. Anytime anything outside of that, though, it's like, oh, y'all good, I'm good, so y'all good, and that's the problem.
Yeah. For instance, what happened, and a lot of what happened in Indonesia and in Malaysia, and all these different massacres that were overseen by people like Henry Kissinger. There were millions that were killed, and those were also Holocausts as well.
Yeah.
But
and he got to live to be 100 years old and is revered by the media.
Yeah, definitely. And so my thing is that it's not downplaying or minimizing the atrocities of what happened to the Holocaust in the 1930s to the 1940s in Germany and in Europe. It's not minimizing it, but it's taking the other Holocausts that have happened and elevating those to the same level as what happened in Europe and in Germany, because those are just as atrocious and just as horrible as what happened to the 6 million Jews and others, as well as people who are LGBTQ, Jehovah's Witnesses, disabled, and the like.
Yeah.
So it's saying those atrocities matter too. Kind of like when we say Black Lives Matter, those Holocausts also matter. That's what we're saying. And we also need to take those and put those at the same level, at the same importance as what happened to largely the Jewish people in the Holocaust in the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Killier Grigor says also gypsies. Yes, they were also involved in that too. So, but yes. And so that's what happened yesterday as far as that's concerned. Just wanted to get some comments from the chat really quick. Dwayne says the international rule of law means nothing.
It really does. It really does. It's like, what's the point if I could just say, "Oh no, I'm not guilty," and then just you move on.
Yeah, definitely. Jacqueline says that kid should be having a real childhood, going to school, playing with his mates, arguing with his brothers and sisters, normal childhood stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I fully agree. Killier Grigor says, but the problem is Gaza is sitting on billions of dollars of natural resources and natural gas. SG says Biden will be okay if his grandchildren were in this situation? Great question. Holistic Radical says, I have not done as much as a songwriter, but I want to make one out of this kid's words. Yeah. Sean Miller says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Absolutely. Thank you so very much.
I personally hate how that term right there has been completely demonized, and how the people who have demonized it don't see the irony that they're referring to Israel as incomparable to having peace. I mean, to be free from the river to the sea means for Palestinians to have autonomy and the ability to live in their homes. But if that's anti-Semitic, you are basically saying that in order for Palestinians to be free and have that autonomy, Jews cannot exist for that to happen. And it's like, how do you not see how anti-Semitic that is when you say that this phrase right here for autonomy for people that has nothing to do with taking away autonomy from somebody else, but you equate it to being equivalent to taking away Jews' right to exist. It's a frustrating thing what happened to that phrase.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is the equivalent of how a lot of people are treating the phrase Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, whenever we said it, it was like, so all lives don't matter? So white people's lives don't matter? It's like, we never said that. It's
Never.
like,
Yeah, it never came out of my mouth.
And so you don't hear people saying free Israel, because the thing is that if that were the case, then that means that Israel will be subject to apartheid. Israel will be subject to an open air concentration camp. You can say free Israel, especially during the Holocaust and what they were enduring. Absolutely. Free the Jewish people. But in order to be, to have this phrase, be free, you have to be the opposite of free at that moment. And who is the opposite of free right now?
The Palestinians. That's why you can stand with Israel, because Israel already has a comfortable place in standing in the global in global politics and just around the world. Like, that's why you don't free Israel. You stand with what they're doing. And like, you can't think of yourself as a liberator and stand with an oppressive regime like that.
Absolutely. Miguel says the irony of the UN vote happened on December 8th, which is established as the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and of the Prevention of this Crime.
Wow.
Celia Grigor says BB the Butcher. I like that. That's an apropos name, because I do see him as a butcher. Netanyahu is just a horrible human being. Just do like one or two more. Let me see. Jacqueline says, what's worse is that they know they're being dishonest.
Yeah, that's why I say you can't have a soul. You can't. In order to sleep at night, you can't have it. There's no way. No way.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. All right, so I'm going to be moving on. If you guys have not, please make sure to like the stream. I appreciate it very much. Cam, are you willing to stay for the last story, or do you have to go?
Yeah, I got time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice. Okay. Get to have him for the last story. All right. Cool beans.
The whole show.
So if you guys have not already, of course, just to let you guys know, we're also doing a fundraiser for Orlando Mutual Aid. Of course, me and KD are also part of the Orlando RBN Mutual Aid chapter. So if you guys would like to, you guys can donate. Go to $Orlando RBN on Cash App to donate. We're trying to raise $3,000 for grocery gift cards and toiletries primarily. So if you guys can do that, then that would be amazing. And let me make sure to put the link in the chat. Yeah, I have it here, so that you guys can donate if possible. And I'm gonna look at to see who donates and then shout them out on here as well as on Twitter. If you guys would like, then I can do that. If you guys don't want to shout out and you guys want to remain anonymous, just put in the notes, check, anonymous, so that I won't use your name at all. So thank you so very much for that. So our last segment is going to be a heartbreaking one. RIP to Dr. Refaat Al-Arir. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I hope I do him some type of justice, but this was rough. So this is a gentleman that is a resident of Palestine that was killed as of the last couple days ago. And it sucks, because I found out that this person was following me on Twitter, And it just, the reason why I mentioned that this person was following me on Twitter is because this brings it so close to home that it hurts, because it's just like, it's, imagine somebody who you may have met, on social media, and then you find out they were murdered by a government like Israel. Like, how would you feel? Like, how would you take that? So here is something that he said when he was alive and he living in Gaza. Let's take what he said and remember his words, and let it be burned in our memories.
We know that it's very bleak, it's very dark. There's no way out. If there's no water, there is no way out of Gaza. What should we do? Like, drown? Like, commit mass suicide? Is this what Israel wants? And we're not going to do that. And I was telling some friend the other day that I am an academic. Probably the toughest thing I have at home is an expo marker. But if the Israelis invade, if they charge at us, open door to door to massacre us, I'm going to use that marker, throw it at the Israeli soldiers, even if that is the last thing that I would be able to do. And this is the feeling of everybody. We are helpless. We have nothing to lose. We know that it's very bleak, it's very dark.
So that last sound you heard was a bomb going off.
But they're the bad guys, I guess.
But they are the bad guys. And so that was from Refaat. And it's like, what do they do? What do people like him do in this instance? It's heartening, because you look at people like him that tried to speak out about what was going on, and people will say, well, they only went after him because they wanted to go after the militants. But you're literally killing innocent people at the same time.
He literally said he doesn't have a gun. I have a marker that I'll use. What threat do a lot of these people who are killed actually pose to Israel, other than how Sabihad taught us, a demographic one? Just the fact that they exist is enough for Israel to feel threatened, and it's disgusting to see all this go down.
Yeah. So let me share this. This is a post on Instagram. It says, Israel kills beloved Palestinian writer, poet, professor Refaat al-Arir. The post says, we are grief-stricken and enraged to hear that Israel has killed beloved Palestinian professor, writer, poet, and activist Refaat al-Arir. Refaat's constant English language updates kept many around the world informed about Israel's ongoing genocidal assault on Gaza. Today, Israel killed Refaat, bombing his sister's home and killing him, his brother, his sister, and her 4 children. Refaat watched as Israel killed many of his students before they killed him, insisting that his organization, We Are Not Numbers, always does, that they were full human beings with dreams and words and whole inner lives, not just casualties of Israel's brutal violence. Now we insist the same for Refaat. He was not a number. His death is a shocking reminder of the urgency to call for a permanent ceasefire. Not one more Palestinian life should be taken. to save lives. Link in bio to contact your representatives. Be outspoken online and in person. It's what Refaat asked of you. It is what all Palestinians in Gaza need. So this is just horrible, horrible. And many people in independent left media are speaking about what happened to him and mourning his loss as we speak. I know Katie Halper has spoken out about his death as well. Really, it's disgusting what we have seen as far as the murder of many people who are Palestinian, who are just doing what they know how, is to speak out and to share the what's going on so that people can fight for something, fight for liberation.
It's so, the fact that there's not a lot that we can do other than just spread these stories and then talk about and advocate. You can't help but feel super helpless in this point. Like there's almost, I see numbers between 17,000 and 20,000, upwards of 20,000 people just dead. And how many more people have to die in order for someone to finally get kicked in the butt enough to, like, okay, maybe we should hop and stop it? Or are they really going to sit here and allow these people to be exterminated like this and then move on like it's another Tuesday or something like that? We do what we can with spread information, but it just never feels like enough. Never does.
No, you're absolutely right on that. And I want to share something that was from him directly. I want to make sure I go straight to his page for this because so let me just share with you guys this, because I was like, he looks familiar. And then when I saw this, when I saw it says follows you, that's when it hit me hard. And so I'm going to read his pinned tweet. His pinned tweet was from November 1st, which was a few days ago. It says, if I must die, let it be a tale. He said, if I must die, you must live. To tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings. Make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself. See the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale.
Let me tell you, man, I haven't. A lot of things that I've learned since this conflict is, one, how loving the religion of Islam is. I'm not afraid to admit that I was pretty ignorant. I never thought like Islam was counter to progress, but I just didn't know much about it, other than, you know, the basic things you learn. But the love and faith of these people, it is inspiring, and you know, it makes men like him to you know, understand that they could be martyred, but don't let my martyrdom stop us from reaching where we need to go.
Yeah, And so there was a vigil for him last night, which, is beautiful, but he should still be alive. And so the fact is that they're murdering innocent civilians. And to be honest with you, if you are fighting a resisting illegal occupation, which is legal by international law, you have that right. I have to be careful with how I word, things, but it should not, people like him are not soldiers. People like him were not somebody who was on the front lines. They were just educating people about Gaza, educating those of us about what was going on, teaching. This is a teacher. And so when people talk about him and say, well, he was for terrorism, that is absolutely false.
That's nothing. That's all these people have. They'll use terrorists.
Yeah. And so I want to share something else as well. I want to make sure I find it exactly. Because he actually brings out, because a lot of people were trying to demonize Refaat for a reply that he did on Twitter. And I just want to address that because a lot of people okay. So let me go to this initial tweet so that we get this full context. So because everybody was responding to me too. So Mark Lamont Hill, who does very good work, he says, "Rest in peace, comrade. May your sins be forgiven and your grave made spacious and full of light." Somebody came in and said, this dude made fun of Hamas baking a baby alive.
Hamas never baked a baby alive, so he can't really make fun of that.
Yeah. Mark Lamont Hill responded and said, no, he made fun of a ridiculously false claim. He was mocking the absurdity of the claim. Are you saying he deserved to die? And
wow.
Yeah. And this is wild because, it's wild because a lot of times when they will constantly look for a reason for someone perishing. It's just like, for instance, with George Floyd, they said, well, he had drugs in his system. What do you expect? Instead of actually realizing that he died from cardiac and pulmonary arrest. But if you say that, then they try to make excuses to ease their conscience.
Yeah, they do it just on the basis of if a black person is killed by the police, there's always that 13% of the population, 50% of the murders. For one, taking those numbers is absurd. But even if it was the case that is accurate, that 50% of murders is actually committed 100%, not 100, but by black people and it's been confirmed and convicted and they don't get overturned, how in the world is that still a justification for whatever misconduct that leads to the death of someone being arrested? It's people, if they want somebody, they'll make an excuse for anything that they want to justify their position because they don't want to change it. Right? Like, I don't know where the motivation comes from, but it's used everywhere, and that's why the Palestinian plight is so relatable to the Black American plight, which gets me into the FBA people who just don't understand what solidarity actually means.
So here's what something that's going to haunt Barry Weiss for the rest of her life. So Refaat, this is the tweet that everybody was referring to. So David Ifun says a baby was found in an oven, that's unsubstantiated, baked to death by Hamas terrorists. Leading Israeli first responder recounted gathering last night. His group was among the first to respond and witness the October 7th atrocities. So they say, oh my God, they put babies in ovens, which is unproven, and basically joking about the absurdity. Refaat says, with or without baking powder.
Like, right? Honestly, everything that actually happened they're talking about on October 7th, Hamas took the time to bake a baby. That's the line they're going with.
Yeah. And then Barry Weiss actually said, here's Refaat Al-Darir's joking about whether or not an Israeli baby burned alive in an oven was cooked with or without baking powder. Again, that is completely unproven, just like the beheaded babies thing. It is unproven, right? So Refaat responded. He said, if I get killed by Israeli bombs or my family is harmed, I blame Barry Weiss and her likes. Many maniacal Israeli soldiers already bombing Gaza take these lies and smears seriously, and they act upon them. Now he's dead. So now, what of it, Barry Weiss? He's gone. He's gone. What do you say now? Are you gonna stand by what you said?
It looks like she's still on the let's take out Hamas type stuff. Like she's not gonna change. I mean, why would she?
It's just wild, because my thing is, like, even if you want to take them out, fine. But why aren't you advocating for Israel to take its special forces and to go in and extract the enemy? Why are you advocating for constant shelling and bombing of places where innocent civilians live?
Like, especially if these people know where Hamas is, apparently. They know where the tunnels are. They know all this stuff. They said, oh, I confirm they're here. I confirm they're here. I confirm they're here. So if you know that, you're going to risk not only the civilians surrounding Hamas that they like to play as human shields, but also the hostages that are with Hamas. If you know where they are, but your solution to stopping them is just to bomb everything, I fail to see how anyone could, in good faith, still stand behind that.
Yeah. So this hit Katie Halper pretty hard. And even though I didn't know Refaat personally, I just want to give a shout out and condolences to people who knew him more closely, like Katie Halper. I'm very sorry And I'm so sorry to anybody who was closer to him for the loss of a brilliant person. Just like I am sorry about the losses of all the over 17,000 Palestinians that have been killed in the last few weeks, as well as my condolences to everybody who has lost Palestinian loved ones in the last 75 years. I condemn the United States government for using our federal dollars in this, and I condemn the state of Israel for illegally occupying and committing apartheid in the land of Palestine. So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
So yeah. But that's unfortunately what happened. Let's take one more look. Dr. Refaat al-Arir, you will be forever in our memories. So thank you so very much for all the work. So let's go to the chat and see what everybody's saying so that, you know. All right. Dwayne says Caitlin Johnstone wrote a great poem about his murder. Oh, I'll have to take a look at that later. Thank you so very much. Jacqueline says they told him they were going to kill him before him, not to warn him, but to gloat. The cruelty was the point. Oh my God.
And that's got to be I mean, that's terrifying because that's literally what happened. And even at the time of making that threat, it's a very credible one because that's what they've been doing.
Yeah. SG says his sister and her kids all died because they wanted to kill him. Kurt Baugh says using the Holocaust to justify your Holocaust is worse than anything. Oh my gosh. Sean Miller says, man, I can only in my wildest nightmares imagine terror, the fear, the heartache. Clear Grigor says the oppressed have become the oppressor. Humans, go figure. And this is one thing I tell Black people. Do not try to be like the oppressor. Because we can be capable of committing these atrocities ourselves. This is why we have to decolonize our minds. Sean Brock says, how come I can't leave a super chat for JB? Because I've been permanently, not permanently, I'm temporarily demonetized. So if you want to leave something for me, you can do it through my PayPal. The link's in the description. But yeah, I'm demonetized right now because I shared what was going on underground in Gaza, and I showed raw footage. So that's why.
But JB, that's why we have to vote for Joe Biden again to protect you from the fascism that took away your ability to make money off your work.
I love your sarcasm. It is so welcome here. This is why you just earn more cool points with me. Thank you. Leroy comes in and says, saying that George Floyd died due to drugs in his system is like saying someone who died of COVID had asthma died of an asthma attack. Yeah, I liken it to if I have the flu and you shoot me in the chest and I die, you're going to say that I died from the flu. It's like, no, you shot me. That's how I died. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy how people will say that. Yeah. So, and yes, Biden is a fascist. Yes.
Most definitely.
Your comment, yeah, I didn't know your comments were deleted, but I'm sorry about that. But a lot of times YouTube will censor certain comments. And so unfortunately, that's the way it goes. Let me take a look this one more. It says, I saw an interview of a 10-year-old little girl from Gaza who says she made a will. And most kids in Gaza have to make one. Imagine having to make a will at such a young age.
I'm more than twice her age, and I hadn't even thought about writing a will and testament.
You know what pisses me off? I got to be very careful what I say. But you have these Zionists that are on TikTok making fun, painting their faces brown, making it look like they have missing teeth, putting on hijabs, and acting like they're Palestinian for laughs.
How do you even think you're a good person? I don't even think we would do, I don't know, just to make fun of your perceived enemy in that manner with like, you're seeing dead children. Like, there's no avoiding the sight of dead children, except for the people who still claim to the Bollywood thing. But like, how could you think you're a good person by making fun of people dying on that type of scale?
They're not. And I'm sick and tired of people pretending like these are good people when they're mocking the suffering of people in these lands and then painting them all as terrorists because of the actions of a few. On top of it all, that collective punishment is being dealt out to all the people in Gaza, and also the West Bank, which Hamas is not in the West Bank.
Yeah.
And they're also killing people out there too. So
I think I read in 2022. Sorry to interrupt. But I was saying I read in 2022 when there was a lot of killing going on with the Palestinians. The majority of those deaths happened in the West Bank. So I don't they have carte blanche. Do whatever you want.
Yeah. They don't even want the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to investigate them.
Oh yeah, because it's anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Let's listen to the war criminal. Here's what he says.
When the ICC investigates Israel for fake war crimes, this is pure anti-Semitism. The court established to prevent atrocities like the Nazi Holocaust against the Jewish people is now targeting the one state of the Jewish people. First, it outrageously claims that when Jews live in our homeland, this is a war crime. Second, it claims that when democratic Israel defends itself against terrorists who murder our children, rocket our cities, we're committing another war crime. Yet the ICC refuses to investigate brutal dictatorships like Iran and Syria, who commit horrific atrocities almost daily. As Prime Minister of Israel, I assure you, we will fight this perversion of justice with all our might.
Let's break down what this fascist has to say, shall we?
Sure.
When the ICC investigates Israel for fake war crimes,
they're not fake war crimes because they're actually real war crimes. Because according to the Geneva Conventions, oh my God, I almost said something that will get me canceled on this app. Control yourself, JB.
He made it less than 5 seconds, and he already got a lie right there.
Yeah, when you violate the Geneva Conventions and the UN charters, and then you're designated a war criminal and your state doing war crimes, that's not fake. They're literally you literally, like, if you choke somebody to death, and it's called asphyxiation, and then you go, well, that's fake, I didn't actually do that. We literally saw you with our own two eyes do it.
No, it was fake.
Now it's fake. Now he's turned into an Israeli Trump. This is fake news. It's fake news. Everything that we did was above board according to international law. Like, what?
Yeah, he took, for someone who's right wing, he took a nice little dive into some identity politics later on in his vomiting of the mouth.
Yeah, gosh. Okay, let's continue. Dear God.
This is pure anti-Semitism.
Criticizing you or your government is not anti-Semitic. Look, if a black man rams his car into a van full of a family on purpose and then gets arrested for it and tried in court for vehicular homicide, then does that give that black man the right to say, oh, this is just racism? This is anti-blackness. Anti-blackness because oh, it's fake that I actually committed vehicular homicide, even though I drove my car into that family in that van.
It kind of reminds me of I know you haven't seen the Boondocks. I think you like it a lot. But they had an episode where it was the trial of Robert Kelly. And in that trial, it was a video that he had a video of his face right there, urinating on a teenage girl, and his defense was that the court system is trying to tear down this black man who does such great things, like makes nice music for black people to enjoy, and it won him the case in the show. And that kind of was, and you see that same thing in real life with his actual trial and with Bill Cosby and with some of it coming forward, like P. Diddy. Like I've seen it happen where people will use, oh yeah, this is racism here. And it's just as ridiculous as this right here.
Yeah, that's like Ike Turner saying, oh, y'all demonize me because I'm black. Like, no, because you beat Tina Turner to hell, man. Gosh. Oh, this guy just, oh my God. I got to be careful what I say. Keep it together, JB.
The court established to prevent atrocities like the Nazi Holocaust against the Jewish people.
Not just for the Jewish people. Bibi, it's not just for Jewish people. It's for all people. Oh my God, this guy is so vapid.
Is now targeting the one state of the Jewish people. First,
I love how he used that as some sort of point. He's like, the thing that was meant to protect us, oh, now it's coming against us. Why is that? It's like that's like, what? It's the same analogy that you just said, that like, oh, this thing was put in place to protect us, but now all of a sudden you guys coming at us. Like, why? It's just ridiculous how that was a point for him to make.
I'm sorry, but this is the equivalent. Hang on. Let me put this stuff back up. Get off me. This is the equivalent of the LDS church that's committing atrocities. Oh my God, the ones that do the child abuse and the ones that are doing the polygamy, and they get caught and they're like, oh, well, you're just doing it against us because you're anti-Christian and you're anti-Mormon. Like, what? No, it's because of what you did. It's because of what you're doing. that we're seeing with our own two eyes. Like, come on. Like, what in the hell is wrong with you? God, fascist brain just rots all through the live long day. You just got to be kidding me right now. Like, BB must be smoking something that is very strong. I want to know what he's smoking because the illusions of grandeur. Oh my God.
It's somewhat, it's terrible to see, it's comical to see, but the terribleness outweighs the comedy because it's insane watching this play out. This is cartoonish.
I'm getting hot. I want to take my shirt off. Oh my God. I wish I had on an undershirt because I'm hot. I'm hot. I'm hot.
First, it outrageously claims that when Jews live in our homeland, this is a war crime.
Nobody said that.
Homeland? Y'all just got there. What are you talking about? Hell, it wasn't even your homeland when y'all migrated there 3,000 years ago. The Canaanites were there. Y'all originally came from Iran and Iraq. That's where y'all came from. That's where Abram and Sarai were originally from. Look, don't get me churchy up in here. Because I will pull out the book of Genesis on y'all. Good God. This guy is so delusional. I'm trying. Don't cuss, JB. Don't cuss. Don't cut. Oh my God. Between him, Trump, Biden, Obama, Clinton, dear God.
And I like how he says, our homeland when he's from Philly.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground where I spent most of my day. Oh my goodness. Benji. He probably hates when people call him that. Anyway, God, I'm probably going to start calling him Benji for short.
Claims that when democratic Israel defends itself against...
Democratic? Like when you guys actually try to overturn your judicial system? How is that democratic? Oh my, look, I'm telling you right now, this dude lies like it's going out of style, bruh. Look, I'm gonna borrow your generation's, well, not generation, well, black generation, black Gen Z. I'm gonna borrow your phrase. That's cap, man. That's cap. He is dead ass lying, bro.
I mean, I can understand his confusion as to what democracy is, considering his parent state is the United States. So maybe that's why he doesn't know what democracy looks like.
Dear God, just he's making me lose my words, and I'm a chatter.
Terrorists who murder our children, rocket our cities, were committing another war crime. Yet the ICC...
It's not a war crime if you actually resist. And if you're on your homeland, that's what the Geneva Conventions and the UN Civil Court of Human Rights actually dictates. So therefore, they're actually not committing war crimes when they actually go up against the illegal occupation. Like every couple of seconds, this guy just lies.
Yet the ICC refuses to investigate brutal dictatorships like Iran and Syria, who commit horrific atrocities almost daily.
So even if Iran and Syria were doing bad things, that does not, they can watch and chew gum at the same time, Benji. They can do both. They can actually go, hey, you're doing a crime and you're doing a crime. We're going to investigate you both. That's like being a little kid doing something bad, but then you see your sibling do something bad. Well, he did it too. This is basically what Ben with. Oh my God! I almost call him a cuss word.
Yeah, they don't want actual fair implementation of these laws. They don't want it. So the easiest way they can do is just, why are you coming at me, man? Like they don't care about fairness.
Yes. I'm sorry, but this nigga here, I'm telling you, bro. Like, bruh. Like, they making me go hood on this guy. This dude lies so bad.
Daily. As Prime Minister of Israel, I assure you, we will fight this perversion of justice with all our might.
I saw somebody make that same gesture before. You just need a little Sharpie and put it right above his lip. Who make? Wait. Hold up. Let me put the volume down. Who makes this gesture? Wait. Who does that look like?
He said, I am demanding that we do it.
See? Just put a Sharpie right above his top lip. That's who Bibi Netanyahu is.
Sad to say that I think the biggest enemy here is it's willful ignorance. Like, all of this stuff is in our face. We are watching. Like, this is the first time you could see a colonial project and genocide just be broadcast to us in this sense that wasn't afforded to the past imperialist ventures that were able to succeed because people, you can lie to people easily that way. But now that it's in our face, and we can, and the only way to combat it is through lying. It's the biggest thing holding us back at this point is people just willfully not accepting what is a truth here. They're going to too many people are either standing on the sidelines as bystanders, or they are backing this regime because critical thinking is not a thing to them.
Yeah, definitely. So Dwayne says Netanyahu. Plantings remind me of the old black and white reels of Hitler ranting. Oh, see, you caught it before I did. Mr. Barak says Netanyahu is a war criminal. Amanda says so much immaturity. Absolutely. Good to see you, Cobra Commander. Nice to have you in the chat. Dwayne says black man robs a bank, kills everyone inside, and says it's racism when he's arrested. That's Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let me go to Upstate Raider says trying to hide his crimes behind Judaism is anti-Semitic. Right? Gosh. Yantra Mandala says Palestine. Yes, free Palestine. Thank you so very much. Gamer for Life says Bibi needs prison.
Bibi needs prison, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cobra Commander says the poor German youth just following orders. Oh my gosh. So yeah. I think let me check on The Rock to make sure if I have any comments. Okay. I don't think there's any comments on oh, we do. We do. So Sydney on Rumble says saying Netanyahu is the problem is excusing the 98% of Israelis who voted for more genocide. Also, who is the West to tell Arabs they should give Jews Palestinian land cuts the West committed a Holocaust? Yeah, you're also correct on that. As far as the Israelis who are okay with the occupation, because here's my problem. There's a lot of Israelis who say, oh my God, we don't agree with this occupation and it should end. To the Israelis on the left that say that the occupation should end, my question is, why are you still in Israel?
Yeah.
Why are you still there?
You're still a participant.
You're still living there. It's like, I understand that you sympathize with the Palestinians, but you're still there. You're still occupying that space. Now, if you want to live among the Palestinians, I mean, yeah, move, go back to where your family originates from, and then come back after the Palestinians have their land back. Okay, fine. And you can live among them, but you're still living in the occupied space.
And that's why when people were talking about the amount of civilians killed on the Israeli side, kind of absolving them from any sense of responsibility to their participation in this colonial settler project, because that concert or whatever it was, a race, was right next to the border and right next to a military area. But it's Palestine. We could have our party and mock them at the same time, and be on our merry way. Then they get caught in the crossfires due to the actions of their government that they haven't challenged. And so it's not to say that people who aren't combatants deserve to die, but I tend to add in another lens into how I view the deaths of the Israelis on that day. They were and are willful participants in settler colonialism. That's also why I wouldn't say anything bad about the Native Americans that killed the settlers that came to Plymouth Rock. It's in the same vein.
Mm-hmm. I mean, essentially, you put yourself in harm's way, and the thing is that you look, if you steal somebody's house and then move your family in, and the person ends up coming to retaliate to kick you out of the house that the original residents of the house came to kick you out of the house that you stole, and then you're crying because now your kids don't have a home to live in, you shouldn't have put your kids in that stolen house in the first place.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't have done it because it's your bad. You brought this on yourself, because now the people who are kicking you, just try to kick you out of their home that you stole, now they're like, no, get out, because you guys literally took it. And so nobody should have to, be harmed at all. The fact is that people like the Israeli government, Zionists like Bibi Netanyahu, keep a lot of Israeli people in harm's way. People like Herzl put people in harm's way through this settler colonial project.
And then it kind of makes you kind of question what goes on in someone's mind, that they think that in order for them to live there, they have to kick somebody else out. Like, why would that be your thought? And why are you okay with that being reality? Like, that's...
Yeah, definitely. And my thing is that I just want to express solidarity with all the Jewish people that are anti-Zionist, who are speaking out. My solidarity is with you. Happy Hanukkah as well, because it is Hanukkah. It's sad because it's not only people like Bibi Netanyahu, but guess what? even if you have a left-wing Israeli prime minister, they're going to be saying, well, we want to keep the illegal occupation. We just want to be nicer about it.
Which it reminds me of a quote from one of Kwame Ture's speech when he was he's still going by Stokely. And it was a conversation about liberalism and how he says that the liberal is basically a moderator between the oppressed and the oppressor, but it is also a member of the oppressed class, but it is on the lower tier of the oppressed class. So they're going to placate to the oppressor at the expense of the oppressed because he is the weakest of the oppressors. He can't challenge them. So yeah, if a left-wing Israel prime minister was in there, he himself would be the weakest of the oppressors, who would still continue the oppressor's mission, but will have to pretend to be that compromise, because on the other half of continuing the oppressor's wishes, the liberal has to put up a front like they want something for the oppressed, like they're fighting for the oppressed. This is, why I've learned to dislike liberals way more than I feel about conservatives.
Gotcha. So as far as that goes, a brother is hungry and got some fried chicken in the kitchen, so I gotta, you know what I got.
I got some baked chicken in the kitchen myself.
Oh, for real? Word?
Made it myself.
You didn't invite me over, bro?
Bruh, you're about an hour from me.
So
you can get on the bright line?
I can roll my chubby behind over there. All right, let me do some house cleaning before I go. Thank you so very much to everybody. Did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and give a like, share, and subscribe for some more Jaybefaunt deliciousness if you guys would like to. If you feel so inclined, please go ahead. I mean, I'm not trying to twist your arm or nothing, but please just go ahead and do it if you guys would like to. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com for email notifications, as well as my written articles, as well as anytime you guys want to know whether I'm going live or upload any clips. And also make sure to go to Cam's, KD's as well. His Substack is also linked in the description down below, so you guys can go and read his articles when they come out. I highly recommend reading them all. They're all great gems as well. Also, thank you so much to everybody that is contributor to Patreon and Coffee as well. Yes, of course, like I said before, I am demonetized. So if you guys would like to contribute to Patreon or PayPal, you guys can also do that as well. Now, as an aside, if you guys have not, we're also doing mutual aid fundraising for Orlando Mutual Aid Chapter of RBN. If you guys can donate at $Orlando RBN. We're giving away grocery gift cards and toiletries primarily. So if you guys would like to, you guys can do that as well. And thank you so very much for your contributions, because they really mean the most, because like we were talking about earlier, it's about solutions and being part of the solution. So you guys can do that as well. So thank you so very much. Now, just to let you guys know, I will be coming out with more readings of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price, because this book is everything and I absolutely love it. So I'll be coming out with more readings of that. If you guys are looking for the readings of Assata Shakur's autobiography, I have finished Assata Shakur's autobiography completely. So if you guys want to, you guys can go into the playlist and take a look at that as well. So I'm going to be closing out. Like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And Cam, stick around. We'll talk afterwards, but I'm going to leave us with a little advertisement with a couple of familiar faces to close out with. But before I go, forehead kisses to every single one of you. And even to you too, Cam, with consent, forehead kisses to you too. All right.
I appreciate
you. All right, everybody. So take care and have a wonderful time. And also, rest in peace, Refaat. You are with us always. And by the way, free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody. We are Orlando RBN Mutual Aid. We're doing actions here in Orlando for our neighbors, for our houseless neighbors. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can donate.
So our next action, our goal is to raise $3,000, hopefully by mid-January.
The goal of the $3,000 is to not only supply our unhoused neighbors with toiletries that we were able to do earlier when we first formed the mutual aid chapter, but also supply them with grocery store gift cards to feed themselves hot food.
Look, compassion equals power, and our compassion is the solution. Come together and help us be able to raise this for our homeless neighbors here in Orlando with love and solidarity. Hey, everybody. We are Orlando.